Our last point for today is something really simple, and we won't even necessarily expect you to make your own sentences like this, but it's something that is important to know about as we're moving forward, and something that will help you to understand better when people speak to you. So we talked about the topic particle wa being used to mark, for example, when we have an X wa y des sentence. Like, for example, Miyari-san wa 2年生です. Mary-san is a second-year student. So that topic particle wa, that like as for Mary-san, is introducing the topic that we are talking about. We've also been using it in our sentences with verbs. Like, for example, Miyari-san wa 勉強します. So Mary-san studies. That Miyari-san wa is marking our topic. It's telling us what we're talking about. As for Mary-san, she studies. So we have this topic particle wa, but it is useful to know that the topic is not necessarily always the person who is doing the verb. So let's take a look. So Takeshi-san asks, Mary-san, 週末は大抵何をしますか? 週末は大抵何をしますか? And Mary-san can answer, or Mary-san could say, Mary-san could say, 今日は京都に行きます. So in both of these cases, we have wa putting a focus on the topic of the sentence, but the topic of the sentence is not necessarily the same as the subject. In other words, the topic is not necessarily always going to be a person or the person who's doing the verb. So when Takeshi-san asked this question, Mary-san, as for the weekend, on the weekend, what do you usually do? So the topic is 週末. But 週末, that's a weekend, that's a period of time. So 週末 is not doing the action. He's not asking what the weekend does. He's just bringing up the topic of the weekend for them to talk about. The same with number 2, when Mary-san says, 今日は京都に行きます. She's not saying today we'll go to Kyoto. Like today is not a person and they're not doing the action. She's just saying that as for today, talking about today, I will go to Kyoto. So the I in this case is kind of implied, and we are using the wa to mark the time that we're doing something. So once again, you don't necessarily have to worry about making your own sentences with wa as the topic, although you definitely can if you want to practice. I mostly just want to bring this up so that you know what's happening if you see this in a sentence or if you hear it when somebody's talking to you. So Mary is the subject, the one doing the verbs, but the topic here is either the weekend or today. So the topic and the subject, not always exactly the same. A lot of the time we use this to put the focus on the time. So what do you do on the weekends? Specifically, I'm not asking about what you do all the time. I specifically want to focus on what you do on the weekends. Or Mary says, today I'm going to Kyoto. So that's the thing she's doing today. She wants to draw attention to the day that she's talking about. So we often use this wa in situations like that.